Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our alumni webinar series. I'm Brendan Patterson, Associate Professor and Associate Dean in the Business School at York St John University. And I've been asked to host this webinar as part of our York St John University alumni series, Alumni Journeys, Creativity, Careers and Community. Before I introduce today's speaker, there's a few housekeeping matters to share with you. We will be hosting a Q&A at the end of the talk, and we have some pre-prepared questions which we'll be sharing with our speaker. However, if you have any questions that you'd like to put to our speaker, please do email us and we can then pass these on to our speaker. So our email address is alumni@yorksj.ac.uk. There's also an auto transcript which should be appearing during the talk for increased accessibility. But please do be aware that this may not always translate perfectly. Okay, so I'm delighted to be able to introduce to you our speaker for today, which is Mark Mattinson. Mark is the General Manager at York Dungeon. Previously, Mark worked for City Cruises York, and over his career has focused on building strong working relationships with family-friendly tourist attractions in the York area. Mark graduated from York St John University in 2014 with a degree in International Tourism Management and worked for City Cruises and has continued to support local tourism since. Mark is also a trustee for Future of Taru, a small UK registered charity providing school, quality education, a feeding programme, emotional support and a safe environment for many of the poor children in Taru in Kenya. So I'm really delighted to pass over to Mark now and look forward to chatting to you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Nice to see you again and good afternoon. It's firstly, just thank you for inviting me on. It's a very, it's quite an honour really to be asked back to do this, and in a way quite a strange thing because you have to try and think, what have I got that's interesting or might be interesting for people to listen to. So I'll do my best with that, and we'll see where this takes us. We'll look forward to the questions at the end as well. So yeah, nice summary. As you say, I studied at St John's, started back in 2012, graduated in 2014. I was a mature student. I was 30 when I started started studying, and so I not necessarily followed an academic path from leaving school. I actually went straight into industry, and I did a management training course, like a fast track training course with Tesco, the supermarket company, and I did that for 2 years, and then decided perhaps that wasn't really for me, and was still young enough in life to be able to sort of make those decisions and choose a different path. So I ended up going backpacking, and I took an opportunity to get out there and see the world, and that was kind of the picture of my 20s really. I was very fortunate and fully appreciate, not everybody gets to do that, but yeah, my travels kind of took me to Asia, to South America, India on a couple of occasions, Australia. I was lucky enough, lived in New Zealand for a year at one stage, and yeah, had a really good time, immersed in lots of different cultures, and had some great experiences. And around all of that, I worked for a passenger boat company based in York, which at the time was called York Boat. So I was trained as a captain and kind of a duty manager as well during my time. So I worked seasonally, and I would work the summer, and then I would kind of disappear for the winter. And it was a great lifestyle. Loved every minute of it. And then I hit 30 and realised that I needed to do something else, and might have been a stern word from my dad along the way there that pushed me towards doing something when I got to 30. So yeah, enrolled at York St John, and I think given that history, all my experiences of working in tourism and spending all of my time away from work, kind of traveling the world really, my degree choice was quite easy, and I did an international tourism management degree And again, I'd say I was quite fortunate with that because I had a lot of first-hand experience that I could call upon in terms of context for the various modules and assignments that we had, either from my working background, working in York's tourism industry, in very much operational roles, or in fact, traveling different countries, visiting different cultures, and being that tourist and experiencing that firsthand. So I'd say I was definitely quite fortunate in that. And so yeah, it was actually 2011. It was when I started my degree. I think I said 2012 earlier. So yeah, 3 fantastic years at York St John. It does feel a long time ago now, and I suppose it is getting on for not far off 10 years since I graduated. And since then, my career path didn't necessarily go how I anticipated it. I graduated with a view to moving away from the company I was working for, which was York Boat at the time, simply because I'd been there since 2002, so I'd been there for 12 years at different for different lengths of time, and so thought I'd look into doing something different. I did actually set off down the path of doing setting off into doing a PhD, and that didn't come to pass in the end. And so decided in the end to accept a job offer to manage a passenger boat company in Chester, the owners of which owned the company in York that I was working for. So I moved across to Cheshire, had 2 good years there, and in actual fact, it was great for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was able to put into practice everything I'd learned in my degree. Again, and I'll probably keep saying this, but I was pretty fortunate with that in that I had a ready-made position there at the end. So everything from human resources to business operations, sales and marketing, the role I had in Chester encompassed all of that. And I also had the background to understand the passenger boat side of the business. So I had 2 years really where I was able to put a lot of that into practice, and the business at that point really was ready for anybody with that background to sort of come in and digitize a lot of what was going on. So it was a really good sort of test bed, and great team of people. Had 2 really good years working there, and still keep in touch with them. They're good friends now, and I'm over there at the end of next month to catch up with them all again. So had 2 years there, and then moved back to York, back to what was about to become City Cruises York, so back to the company I'd worked for previously. And there was a maternity cover position in sort of sales and marketing area. So I was ready to move back to York anyway. It's where I'm from, and I felt like I wanted to really kind of move back permanently. So took on that position, which then became a permanent sales and marketing manager position with City Cruises. And that was I'd say like another step up from where I'd been working in Chester. And again, I was able to tap into a lot of what I'd learned in my degree. We were then starting to work on more of an international stage in terms of York is very much an international tourism destination, and working for City Cruises, I quickly got involved then with the travel trade part of the business. So working with trade agents from North America, from Asia, from across Europe. And so then, some of the things that we learned in international marketing module, as an example, really kind of came in handy there. Got the opportunity to go to Beijing on a travel trade mission for a week towards the end of 2018, I think that was, within that role as well, because I used to work quite closely with the London City Cruises team, again, on these kind of sales and marketing projects. So I'd had quite a few good years with them. And now here I find myself in the yacht dungeon, completely different to where I've probably spent a good 20 years of my life working for passenger boat operations. So yeah, now, very proud to be the general manager of Yacht Dungeon, one of the city's standout tourist attractions. I think I can safely say that, and I honestly do believe that. Part of Merlin Entertainments as well. So, part of a huge operation, a huge network of attractions and theme parks, over 160 sites worldwide, and That's kind of ever expanding. So I've been here since August 2021. So just over a year. Learned an awful lot in that time. It's an incredible team of people that we have working here. We have over 30 actors in the team, but then we also have a lot of other team members performing other functions, technical and kind of engineering in the background to keep all of the gags and the effects running in the shows, and obviously a guest experience team who look after our admissions and our retail offering. Fantastic management team, and then beyond that a much wider Merlin team that we have access to HR, marketing and finance functions there as well. So I'd say that's probably a quick summary of what's been quite a varied career really, and alongside of that, really lucky to be a trustee of the Future of Tarot, as you mentioned, an amazing little charity that you might remember about 10 minutes ago, right at the beginning, I mentioned that my first job from school was a management course with Tesco, and actually for the second year my placement was in Goole, just slightly over in East Yorkshire I think, and store manager was a chap called Paul, who I've kept in touch with over the years. Great guy, you know, kind of strong influence on my career really, on, you know, when I think back to his kind of management style and leadership style, and it's his charity. He's founded it about 6-7 years ago now. All came from a visit to Kenya that he made as a leisure visit, followed by a few more, and he realized he wanted to do something to support some children in the town of Taru. So he started off by paying the school fees for a handful of children in the town, because there's no free education in Kenya, so there are school fees required for anyone to attend school, but you have to go to school, so it's difficult for a lot of the families there if they don't have the money to pay for that. And then he started speaking to friends who offered to maybe sponsor some other children in the town, and after a while he thought, well, maybe we could actually do a better job of running a school than some of the government ones that are there. So he started looking into funding and opened a primary school with somewhere around 20 to 30 children initially. And then, you know, standing here today, there's now a primary school and a secondary school. In total, there's about 350 pupils across the two. So it's about 300 at the primary school, about 50 at the secondary school. And yeah, just really lucky to be involved in it. You know, it's an amazing thing. We've been really well supported as a charity by, certainly, you know, grateful through my network. We've been really well supported by York City Football Club. They've provided us with well over 100 of their foundation's football kits, which the children very proudly wear as their football strip and for kind of sports days and things like that. But also people from around the city, people I know from Visit York, have supported us with clothing, you know, from their own children that they've donated, and footwear, and that's kind of ongoing. So at the moment we're very much looking to try to gather more donations of school equipment. We're looking into more sports equipment, music equipment, musical instruments as well, and this is always kind of growing and it's ever changing. The charity, you know, has really kind of gone from strength to strength. It's fully not for profit as well. Nobody takes any kind of wage from it. The trustees do everything voluntarily, and even Paul, the founder, he has a full-time job on top of this. He just does this in his spare time. And you know, I was lucky enough to visit. I visited Taru a few weeks ago in September 2022. And you know, he still pays for his own flights. You know, the charity doesn't cover anything, any kind of costs in that respect. So and I think that's why we're being so well supported by people I know, and people around the city and in other locations in Carlisle where Paul's from, because everyone can see that. They can see that from the donation, they can see it actually being handed out over there through the you know, the blogs and things that we've run, social media coverage, and it's all done, as I say, fully not for profit. In fact, you know, 100% of everything donated, be it financial or goods, goes direct there. So yeah, that's kind of, I suppose that's become my hobby, along with other hobbies I've got, but it's something that you know, you can kind of do a few minutes here and there a week, and it adds up to probably make a lot of a difference. And so, yeah, something I'm, really, really pleased to be able to be involved in. That's probably a fairly decent overview of kind of where I am and who I am, and how I've got here. And as I say, a big part of that journey was York St John University as well.
Honestly, that's excellent, Mark. Thank you so much, and great to hear about the work that you do in terms of in your kind of your working life, but also the impactful work that you're doing as part of the charity as well. It really is incredible. And I know that only recently you were cycling to raise funds for the charity. Yeah, quite a grueling cycle ride that you did.
Yeah, we've done a couple now, myself and a few friends. Last summer, on the back of the pandemic and things like that, and not really being able to socialize, and we're all in our early 40s now, myself and my school friends. So one of the guys came up with the idea of doing the coast to coast cycle ride from Whitehaven to we finished in Whitley Bay. I think officially it's Tynemouth, so through the Lake District, through sort of Bishop Auckland and that way. So a few of us kind of signed up for the idea. Never done anything of that distance before. It's kind of 160 miles or so, I think. And yeah, I asked the lads if they'd be happy to do it for, to be sponsored to do it for Future of Tarry, which they did. And yeah, we raised for that one just under £5,000 between us. And that went towards paying for installation of the windows and the roofing and the doors for the secondary school. To say that was still in the construction phase at that time. And also for the toilet block for the secondary school, the high school. And then this summer we felt we quite enjoyed kind of starting on one coast of the country and finishing on the other. So this time we passed through Scotland. So we started in Carlisle, where Paul, the charity founder's from, straight up into Scotland, and then from the west coast, from Annan up through Peebles and Edinburgh, hit the coast at Edinburgh, but then cycled round the coast from there to Berwick upon Tweed. So that was about 195 miles, and I think all but about 8 miles of that was in Scotland as well. And yeah, we did it for a similar group of lads from the first one, and again we raised, I think on that occasion, we raised about £2,800. So again, really significant sum of money, and that's at the moment actually is being used to convert a couple of the classrooms at the high school into dormitories, as some of the children who attend the school are orphans as well. So it means that not only have they got education, but they've also got actually somewhere to live whilst they're studying there, including in the holidays as well. So yeah, and a great way to see the country, cycling through places I've not been to before.
Incredible work though, Mark. It really is incredible and so impactful what you're doing with that charity. It really is.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned coming to university at the age of 30. You decided to come to university. What was it like coming as a mature student? How did you find that transition, having travelled and worked and then going off to university at 30?
It was, I remember my first day walking in, which sounds a bit cheesy, but I do. I remember walking in and having a feeling I've had, and I think we've all had at other times in our lives, that kind of imposter syndrome feeling. So I walked in and realised, I probably looked noticeably older than everybody else, and then it felt very odd, but only really for the first few hours, I'd say. And I think the first day we kind of went off and did like a treasure hunt around the city, and quickly met a few people who kind of paired up in the grouped together. It was an interesting experience, being at the age I was at, and also I think probably more of a key factor was I went to university in my home city as well, where I'm from. So I didn't move away from home. I already had a network of friends, and my family lived nearby, and I was working during my degree as well. So I didn't have that, I suppose, that requirement that people have when they move away from home and they're probably 18 and they're looking for friends to sort of not replace, but to make up for that friends network who they've left behind where they're from. Excuse me. So yeah, it was a strange experience in that I probably didn't live that much of what some people might call a student lifestyle. from a socializing aspect and everything, I very much kind of went in and did my studies and got it done. That was partly down to the fact that I think if I'd have done that, and I'll be very honest about this, if I'd gone to university when I was 18, 19, I don't think I'd have done that. You know, I was very much probably living the student lifestyle without going to university back then. And so I'd already got all of that out of my system. I think there's a lot to be said for going into education when you're a bit older, and you've maybe done some of that, and not for everybody, because there'll be loads of people who go to university at 18 and, you know, do amazingly well. I just know that personally, I don't think I would have done. I had a lot of other things, you know, I ended up spending a lot of time backpacking and whatnot, and it worked out right for me that way. But I think what I would say is that probably the stigma I had in my head that people are going to think, you know, I'm an older student. Everybody was great, you know, nobody kind of distanced from you or anything amongst the students, and obviously, you know, the lecturers were all fantastic as well. You know, so many good memories of that. So, yeah, all good things really, but slightly daunting on day one.
Yeah, and understandable, I think, as well. And you mentioned that working full time alongside studying full time. How did you balance that? I mean, many of our students now are working alongside studying to try and particularly help with the cost of being at university. So how do you manage that dynamic of having to study but also work?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and you know, obviously, it is about having a balance, isn't it? I know that obviously when you're at university, your priority is your studies, but very much so now at the moment with, you know, all the talk about, you know, the increased costs of living and everything, you know, that is always going to be putting more pressure on people. And you know, for me at that time, I wasn't living at home. You know, I was renting a place with some of the guys who I worked with at City Cruises. So we still had rent to pay, still had you know, other costs as well. And I was quite fortunate in that where I was working at City Cruises, I'd worked there for that long that you know, they knew me, and I had things to offer. I was, you know, I was trained as a captain. I was a duty manager. I could you know, run the shift if the, you know, sort of general manager was away. So they were really good in sort of flexing my shifts around my studies. You know, it did mean that there were times where I probably wasn't taking a full day off, but then there would be weeks where, you know, I'd maybe be in university on the Tuesday, but I'd maybe only been for a couple of hours. So I still had the time to piece everything in, but it was definitely a busy few years with not a lot of time off. But for me, that worked because I knew I had to make that commitment. Because going into university 10, 12 years later than I maybe would have done, that's 10, 12 years less to pay off any debt that you incur. So one of my focus, you know, two really was to, you know, to get as high a kind of grade as I could, but also to come out of it with as little debt as I could, which I was able to do purely through maintaining that balance. But yeah, it did take a lot of effort and concentration really to make sure that I didn't let that slip.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think your degree helped you? I mean, you're very active in tourism in York. You know, you're active on the tourism advisory board and with the destination management organisation in the city. You're a leading figure in tourism in the city, if I can say that. So how did your degree help you, do you think, in terms of your involvement in tourism in the city, in the jobs that you've had since graduating and moving from the boats to York Dungeon?
I'm you know, pretty safe to say that if I didn't have that degree, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to get those jobs. You know, I'm sure that I could have carried on working where I was in an operational capacity and working my way up to maybe an operations manager position or something like that, because I had that level of understanding anyway. And I'd worked for a number of years in kind of duty management positions. So I had that, but to be able to take that job in Chester as an example, I just think without the academic work that I'd done, I'm sure I would have understood a lot of what was going on, but I wouldn't have necessarily been able to talk about it or to come up with solutions to problems, because I didn't have any sales and marketing background. I had an opinion about what price tickets should be and things like that, but I hadn't studied pricing as a theory. As kind of one example, I've, generally through my working life, I've, worked at a kind of supervisor or duty management level, like I say. So I did have some experience in leading a team and things like that. But again, I didn't really have any theory behind that. And for me, it just worked to have it all together, to have the experience and to have the academia and the degree that I got. Yeah, definitely opened that door. And especially then, there was just quite a clear step pattern each time I kind of moved on to the next job, that I was taking a step up in terms of not just responsibility, but probably how much I was using what I'd learned in my degree as well each time, even today, and I do still from time to time flick back through some of my old assignments and things, and maybe sort of wince a little bit at some of the punctuation and things like that, but kind of generally it's still useful. A lot of those concepts are still relevant today. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be sat here now if I hadn't done that degree. I can 100% say that.
Excellent. And you've been at York Dungeons 18 months now.
Yeah, getting on for something like that. I'm just approaching my second Halloween.
Right.
That's our biggest time of the year. So yeah, it was August. So what's that, about 16 months? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And in that time, you've navigated floods. You
Yeah,
had a heat wave to deal with as well.
Yeah.
So what's it like? What's a typical day for you as the general manager for York Dungeons?
I think you've probably just alluded to the fact that there isn't one really, because the building did flood in February, and we've gone through that heat wave, and I think that I think what I love about it is that it's 100% not just a desk job. It's very much rooted. It's a general manager position, but it's very much rooted in being at the heart of the operation of the attraction as well. I'm involved in the marketing side of things, certainly at a local level, as you say, we Visit York and the advisory board and things like that. But I never work from home. I'm here every day, right in the heart of the building, and no 2 days are the same. We work in the entertainment industry. It's a tourism attraction, absolutely. It's not a museum, and there's a place for museums absolutely right throughout the industry. There's some excellent museums in York, but we're not that. We're an immersive theatre, really, and it's just incredible fun. When you get everything lined up and you get everybody working together as a team, which we are, and we've got a really strong team. It's great fun. There's tough decisions to make, and like I say, not every day is the same at all. But 1 minute we might be, on a call with the marketing team and discussing what we're doing heading into a Halloween, for an example, or and the next minute we'll be, answering a guest inquiry at the front door, and or covering the admissions team's lunches, or it's very much hands-on, and we try to, as a management team, be as kind of visible as we can, and very much kind of muck in and get involved. So working in a dungeon is a crazy place to work, but the whole brand is built around scary fun. It's not just about scaring people, it's about they have fun as well, and that's at the essence of everything. It's the essence of like our working day. And it's a good job the office is empty, because it was it was quite raucous in there about half an hour ago, because we're all having a good laugh about something that happened yesterday. And it's that type of place to work. It's very much we all kind of live and breathe that. And I've been, I'm one of the newest members of the team, really, and very much been welcomed into it, and really enjoying it.
That's great. It's really good to hear as well. In terms of advice you might give to a student who's about to graduate, or looking to do work in the tourism industry, or with attractions, maybe more specifically, what advice would you give to somebody in terms of getting the foot in the door in that sector?
I feel a little bit maybe I don't know if kind of imposter syndrome again is the right thing to say, but I feel a bit cheeky answering that, in that for me, I ended up kind of going back to work through the same employers I was working with before. And that's why I kept using that word fortunate, because I was looking for, you know, other opportunities, and I just couldn't really find the thing that I wanted. And maybe for me, I was looking too far away when the obvious option was there all along. But I think really for somebody wanting to get into tourism, I mean, even going back to the beginning of their studies, if they hadn't already, I would strongly recommend working within the sector during your studies if you can. You know, there's jobs in retail and kind of hospitality, kind of bars and restaurants and things. But I think if you really want to work in tourism itself, then I think that, you know, to work in an attraction, a tour operator, something like that, you're really gonna get a good understanding of what it's like. And like I say, for me, I was lucky. I had a lot of amazing context for what I was studying. So that'd be my first piece of advice. And I would imagine that, you know, the best places to study tourism are places like York or Bath or, you know, Chester, places that have Liverpool, places that are either well established or up and coming tourism destinations, because then you can have good opportunity for exposure to it and to work within it as well. And then with graduation, even after that, you know, I think that if you're looking for a job in tourism management, I wouldn't be afraid to still go into working at an operational level, if it's a choice of that or kind of nothing in the industry, because you can still really stand out as an employee if you've got a tourism management degree, and you're prepared to go in back at work in an operational level. Number one, you're showing that willingness to be involved in an operation, which is at the heart of everything anyway. That's what the industry is. And then two, you kind of on display to that company. So you know, that would be the thing, because you know, kind of general management jobs or even sales and marketing jobs, you know, they're not the type of things that every time you open the job paper, there's loads of them there. But there are always jobs working for tourism businesses. And I think that would be probably the best piece of advice I could give. And somebody else might give, you know, completely different to that. I suppose contrary to it, you know, there are hospitality positions as well. And, you know, you might really want to work in tourism attractions, museums and things like that. But in the interim, you know, a kind of leadership position, or even, you know, sales and marketing position for a hotel or a chain of bars or something like that, it's still hospitality industry, and a lot of skills are transferable as well. I think that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to dive straight into it. I suppose from that, there's a few options, and yeah. But the main thing is to just not be afraid to put yourself out there, I'd say, and gain as much experience while you're studying as you can.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. You know, particularly getting that experience alongside your studies, you know, really does go a long way. You mentioned there about skills as well. I wondered, are there any particular skills or qualities you think are important, particularly going forward, you know, as the sector evolves, that you think students, graduates should be looking to develop?
Yeah, I think in terms of kind of behind the scenes, a lot of industries are advancing in terms of digitization and things like that. A lot of tourism offerings are kind of advancing with things like augmented reality and things like that as well. So, you know, certainly any type of digital skills, be that, you know, working with websites or working with things like AR, they're going to be valuable within the industry. More and more our customer bases are moving online. The way we communicate with our consumers, our visitors, is moving online. So digital skills, 100% useful. Would definitely recommend that. But also just at the heart of tourism, at the heart of, you know, working within the industry, it's still about guest interaction. we are here to provide an environment for somebody to enjoy their leisure time. That is still what's at the heart of it. So one-to-one or verbal communication skills, just being able to interact with people is so important. And again, through exposure to that during your studies, working within the industry, front of house positions, absolutely, you can learn those skills, develop those skills. Because if you don't have that, I think you'd really struggle to work in tourism, because I think you'd struggle to understand what it is, and the thing is, we're all tourists. We're all, at some point, hopefully, are fortunate enough to get some time off and to be able to go somewhere, whether we're just going out for a day out where we live, or we're getting on a plane and going somewhere. We've all done something like that, I would think. And we all know how we like to be treated. We all know the types of things we like to experience, to enjoy. And for me, that's at the real heart of it. You need to understand that and to be able to facilitate that and communicate that through your teams as well. And it has to sit at the heart of everything. That's something Merlin are fantastic at that. They really are. The brand values, the company values that we have, we care, we love what we do it for the love of fun. That kind of runs right through the company. And I'm not just saying that because they're my employer, I'm saying it because I see it every day. And I think you have to be able to embrace that. People have a day out, or people go on holiday to have a good time, and you have to be able to deliver it and enjoy doing so. And I suppose the last thing is you have to be able to cope with a little bit of chaos, because you will get it 100%. And I quite like a little bit of chaos because it keeps me on my toes. Again, you're working in operations, you're running an attraction or a bar or a hotel or whatever it is. Not nothing, but you will never get days where everything goes to plan. Something will happen, a guest will be late, or something won't be delivered, or there will be something, and that comes with experience over time. But I think just being prepared for that, as prepared as you can be for the inevitable, something outside of your control that you have to be able to deal with, and you still have to be able to deliver your experience for your visitor as well. And again, all these things for me, I've not kind of had a magic pill that's told me all of this. This is just from working in the industry, and you learn it. So yeah, as much exposure as you can get, you can pick these things up.
Brilliant. A couple of final questions from me, if that's okay. If you were to go back to your younger self, whether that might be 18 or perhaps that first day as you arrived here at York St John, what piece of advice might you give yourself, having reflected upon, as we've done today, where you've come?
What piece of advice would I give myself? I think one would be probably to trust your instincts and to trust in your own experiences. And I think by and large I've done that, but it's something I've picked up from kind of people who I'd describe as mentors over the years. So they might have been past lecturers or past employers or instructors in some way, shape or form. You know yourself better than anybody. We all do. And I think sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, if you're new to a role or new to a position, there might be an opportunity where you can get maybe distracted by the decision or choice that you might think somebody else wants you to make, whereas really, for me, it's about following your instincts. It's not for a bad reason, but you might get distracted by financial operation or whatever reasons. But there's times where I've kind of, and this, I'm certainly not saying I'm always right, because I'm not, but there's times where I've been sat with a decision to make, and I've had a real strong kind of spidey sense, I'd call it, and I've not gone with it for reason X or reason Y, and then it's turned out I should have done. And I think for me, probably more often than not, if you follow that spidey sense, then you're more likely to be, it's not even about being right, but you're more likely to be on the right path. So I think I'd probably say that to myself. And then probably don't overpromise to people as well, because I think at times maybe that's like you have a job interview and you have to come up with a bad thing about yourself. I'd maybe say that sometimes. I might not so much now. I think I've learned from that, but maybe I'd just be too keen to say yes, because again, it's a similar type of thing. I think I should say yes, whereas you can learn to say no as long as you can justify it, and just being confident in that, I guess.
Brilliant. My final question then, Mark.
Yeah.
What's your favourite memory? If there's only one, you have more than one, but your favourite memory of your time at York St John?
My favourite memory? Yeah, I've got a lot. It probably comes down to some of the people I've interacted with. Like all my lecturers, were fantastic. You included, Brendan. Probably Steve and Glyn, I'd say. Steve Watson and Glyn Littlewood. We're just an amazing pair of people to learn from, really, like a great double act. And they had such a good sort of balance between, I think, academic and sort of professional backgrounds. Yeah, I learned a lot from those two. Yeah, I'd say that.
I'd echo that as well, I think, and very much missed as well as part of our academic community here. Mark, thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating to hear about your journey to university, your time at university, but also what you've done since graduating, and to hear about the roles that you've had and the impact that's had, and particularly your charity work as well. I mean, just sound really amazing. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And I wish you all the very best going forwards.
Thank you very much. Same to you. Good to see you again.
Thank you.